1998, Resident Evil 2 was released on the Sony PlayStation, and due to the impact of the game, it was later considered to be one of the most influential survivor-based horror video games ever conceived. The characters of Resident Evil 2 were also some of the most memorable of the entire franchise. From the story, a minor, almost non-existent character within the game was that of Katherine Warren. Details from the original Resident Evil 2 plot were that Katherine Warren's story was interconnected with that of her father, Michael Warren. Michael Warren was that of the last mayor of Raccoon City, and the person mostly responsible for the remarkable economic development and regional prosperity. Mayor Warren was originally an electrical engineer who worked within Raccoon City, and in 1963 was one of those responsible in bringing electricity and functional power to the once small and rural town in the Arklay Mountains. In 1968, he was also responsible for being the main force for the city's rudimentary transportation system. In 1987, Warren decided to run for public office by becoming mayor, and due to the achievements he did throughout the decades of service for Raccoon City, he won the elections with a majority and was soon sworn into office. During his time as mayor, Raccoon City was transformed from a rural settlement to an urban city, but this development was funded with support from the Umbrella Corporation, whom had built a number of key facilities throughout Raccoon City. Mayor Warren also implemented a developmental plan called Bright Raccoon 21, which took place throughout the 1990s up until the outbreak in 1998. This plan was the pivotal factor that transformed Raccoon City from the rural town of the past to the modern city of today. This plan, when implemented, brought modern conveniences, modern infrastructure, and modern technology. But there were concerns that with the urban sprawl that came to Raccoon City, there were narrow streets for cars, lack of public areas for recreation, and crowded multi-story apartment buildings, but the citizens were mostly supportive with the development. More well-known milestones of the Bright Raccoon 21 project were the establishment in 1996 of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, an elite unit of the police department abbreviated as STARS. Mayor Warren was also in the process of introducing plans for establishing a new part of Raccoon City known as the Special Medical Zone, until these plans were halted during the destruction of Raccoon City. When the impact of the T-virus reached the inner regions of Raccoon City, Warren panicked and fled immediately, rather than stay to help direct efforts to save survivors, even leaving his own daughter of Katherine in the Raccoon City Police Department with Chief Brian Irons, himself a pawn of the Umbrella Corporation as well. Through circumstances, Katherine would later be murdered by him. Upon leaving the city, Michael Warren placed himself in the custody of the United States Army, which had blockaded the city to keep the infected from escaping. After this time, the character of Michael Warren, as well as his fate, is unknown. In the original 1998 Resident Evil 2, there were nearly nothing known in terms of details about Katherine Warren herself, other than that she was the daughter of the mayor and extraordinarily beautiful. In-game, the mayor's daughter wasn't even referred to by a name, but through a manga published at the time which was connected to the game, had her name as Amy-chan, as well as the manga also revealed that Irons had killed her with a pike in his taxidermy room within the police station, despite the fact that in the video game, when Katherine was shown on Irons' desk, her torso seems to be saturated with blood. When the player comes upon the mayor's daughter, she's already found dead, as mentioned on the desk of Police Chief Irons. Before the player ventures to that particular area, there's a cutscene of Chief Irons confronting the player about the situation. As a scream is heard, as it's widely assumed to have been Chief Irons killing her in that exact moment. He explained that he was supposed to have protected her but failed. Details suggested that due to the outbreak, Chief Irons becoming more and more mentally unstable as a result of it, he remarked at her beauty and decided to kill her and transform her into one of his taxidermy trophies. In the 2019 reimagining of Resident Evil 2, the game gave a backstory to the mayor's daughter and had more details for her by giving her the name of Katherine Warren. But in the official canonical story, the details aren't exactly much different than the original, as once again when the player progresses through the game, the body of Katherine Warren is seen on the taxidermy table and she's already dead, on being prepared for embalmment, which is why her skin was that of a asphyxiated blue color. Not technically mentioned in the actual game is the fact that Katherine is in a relationship with Ben Bertolucci, Ada Wong's reporter informant, but he himself was killed by Mr. X. But in the runaway alternate scenario, the story changes to that of Katherine killing Chief Irons with a knife. She later escapes from the orphanage where Chief Irons has his secret taxidermy room and ventures through Raccoon City to the police office's jail cell to reunite with Ben, and both apparently, theoretically live happily ever after. Our cinematic cutscenes show the both of them managing to escape the city, but in the main story both die through horrific circumstances, as Capcom decided to give the character of Katherine Warren a bit of closure for fans, and at the same time create a backstory for a character depicted in the original Resident Evil 2 video game that had virtually no details at all. The character of Katherine Warren was very sad. Sometimes a character can be forgotten because the details for them didn't exist, but later on, new ideas were given to them.